6 multiverse timelines. Star Trek can't erase some timelines in Star Trek can't be erased without actually breaking the structure of the multiverse. In Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, Episodes 9 and 10, the devourer of all things, Traveler Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton, confirms that Star Trek's prime timeline is just one part of a multiverse comprised of many timelines. When a time traveler in Star Trek goes to the past, they're supposed to make sure that the future that they originally came from is still there. But sometimes Star Trek's time travelers alter the past in a way that prevents their future from existing. That paradox, Wesley explains, attracts the Loom, interdimensional scavengers who feed on dead timelines. The Loom are new Star Trek villains, so they couldn't have been in anything that predates Star Trek Prodigy. But the Loom and the multiverse concept put into perspective some earlier Star Trek time travel stories. It's been understood that time travelers who prevent their own existence cause their original timelines to be erased and rewritten. The Loom ostensibly help with that, but if the original timeline is erased, then the time traveler also ceases to exist, and so would their actions. Therefore, time travelers who cause important events in Star Trek's prime timeline must hail from another timeline in the multiverse, one that can't be erased. Alternate Kirk's war-torn timeline. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, briefly sends Lt. Lian Noonien Singh, Christina Chong, to a timeline where Starfleet is replaced by the United Earth Fleet, and the Enterprise is a warship captained by an alternate version of Captain James T. Kirk, Paul Wesley. Earth is at war with the Romulans. The Vulcans are practically decimated, and human casualties are high. This timeline is the result of Romulan meddling in Earth history, and Lian accidentally takes James with her to 21st century Earth to put time back on track. This version of Kirk and his war-torn timeline doesn't do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the entire multiverse, so the stakes, if it gets erased, are mostly personal for Lian Noonien Singh. Without the alternate Kirk, Lt. Noonien Singh might still be able to complete her mission from the Department of Temporal Investigations, but Lian's character arc would be very different. The importance of Kirk's timeline in the long run all depends on whether Lian's capacity for love and vulnerability play a larger role in the prime timeline's more significant events. The 24th century Klingon war timeline. When the USS Enterprise C emerges from a temporal rift in Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 15, Yesterday's Enterprise, the USS Enterprise D shifts into an alternate timeline where the Federation is on the losing side of a decades-long war with the Klingons. The militaristic crew of the Enterprise D helps repair the Enterprise C before sending her time-displaced crew back in time to a fight they can't win, defending a Klingon outpost from a Romulan attack. Although the Enterprise C's crew faces certain death on the other side of the temporal rift, their actions speak volumes to the Klingons. This timeline's version of Lt. Tasha Yar, Denise Crosby, believes that her tactical skills will give the Enterprise C crew a fighting chance after the loss of Captain Rachel Garrett, Tricia O'Neill, and for the most part, she's right. The Enterprise C still goes down, but some Starfleet officers survive the battle, including Yar. Crosby returns to Star Trek The Next Generation as Tasha's half-Romulan daughter, Sela, who wouldn't exist in the prime timeline without the existence of the alternate reality from yesterday's Enterprise. The Confederation of Earth timeline. At the start of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Q, John Delancey, seems to be up to his old tricks again, twisting reality around as a perverse form of gratitude, as Q sends Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, to a timeline where the Confederation of Earth reigns over the whole planet. Here, General Picard is hailed as the Borg Slayer to a global population of xenophobic humans, a symbol of humanity's supremacy in the cosmos. To escape this hellish reality, Picard and the crew of La Sirena must go back in time to stop Q's interference with 21st century history. Picard's victory in the 21st century might not be impossible without the Borg Queen, Annie Wershing, from the Confederation of Earth timeline, but it would certainly be harder. The Borg Queen is responsible for performing the calculations needed to slingshot around the sun for La Sirena's trip to the past and return to the future. And erasing the Confederation of Earth timeline would force La Sirena's crew to figure out another way to stop Q. The Solum Civil War timeline. Solum Civil War is at the heart of Star Trek Prodigy's complex time travel plot. Sometime before 2436, Starfleet's first contact with the Valnakit, Solom's people, leads directly to civil war. The Valnaka infect the USS Protostar with the living construct as revenge against Starfleet, so Captain Chakotay sends the Protostar back in time to save Starfleet. The diviner, John Noble, goes after the Protostar and creates his daughter, Gwyndula, Ella Pernell, to finish the search. The Solom Civil War is averted in Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, when the USS Voyager A makes successful first contact with the Valnaka. Without the Civil War, however, Gwyn would be erased from existence, because the diviner wouldn't have a reason to go back in time to search for the Protostar. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 dives deep into the ramifications of temporal paradoxes, including what happens when Gwyn does and doesn't exist at the same time. The fact that the Loom don't come back after contact between the Federation and the Valnaka means that the timeline is stable, so the Solom Civil War has to continue to exist in an alternate reality. Admiral Janeway's original timeline, Star Trek Voyager's series finale, Endgame, opens 26 years in the future, in a timeline where the USS Voyager took 32 years to reach the Alpha Quadrant. The Voyager crew suffers heavy losses in this timeline, including Commander Chakotay and 7 of 9, Jerry Ryan and LT. Commander Tuvok, Tim Russ, is suffering from a degenerative neurological disease. Admiral Catherine Janeway, Kate Mulgrew, is determined to change the past, to get the USS Voyager home much sooner, and leave the Borg with a debilitating parting gift. While Voyager getting home later doesn't seem to have a detrimental effect on the timeline, Admiral Janeway's original timeline is impossible to erase, because erasing it actually causes it to come into being. Without Admiral Janeway going back in time to get Voyager home sooner, Voyager takes 32 years to get home, so Admiral Janeway will have to go back in time to get Voyager home sooner. You can't get around it. Star Trek movies' Kelvin timeline. Most of the new timelines in Star Trek are overwritten by the events of the Prime timeline, but in this case, the Prime timeline is the one seemingly being overwritten. When 24th century Romulan Nero, Eric Bana, travels back to the 23rd century to destroy Vulcan as part of a revenge plot against Ambassador Spock, Leonard Nimoy, Nero's interference causes more than just a split timeline. Star Trek 2009, a Naruto incursion, as the travelers call it, ripples along the time stream to alter events that happened even before Nero's arrival, giving birth to a brand new version of reality. The impact of Star Trek's Kelvin timeline on the Prime timeline can't be measured in universe, since there have only been a few passing mentions of the Kelvin timeline in the Prime timeline itself, once in Star Trek Discovery and once in Star Trek Prodigy. The Kelvin timeline did, however, reinvigorate Star Trek with new incarnations of the original USS Enterprise crew, and pave the way for Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Because of its lasting impact on the future of the Star Trek franchise, the Kelvin timeline tops the list of timelines that Star Trek can't erase.